U.S. Marshal and police charged with murder. Yep, a murder that took place in 2016 has finally seen some semblance of justice. Let me take you to Atlanta, Georgia. Now, I was deeply involved in this case from day one. I've stood with the family. I've had rallies, protests. We've talked about it on my various platforms leading up to this moment. Let me put up a picture of the young man they killed. This is Jamarian Robinson. A grand jury on Tuesday returned an 8-count indictment against 2 law enforcement officers in connection with the 2016 killing of a man shot. How many times? 76. 76 times. They shot at him about 100. 76 times, okay? Jamarian had no weapon. He had no gun on him. He was shot 76 times. This was during an attempted fugitive arrest in Atlanta metropolitan area, okay? Eric Hines, let me start here. Eric Hines, who is an assistant chief inspector with the U.S. Marshals Southeast Regional Fugitive Task Force, and Christopher Hutchins, a Clayton County police officer that's in the metropolitan area of Atlanta. They were working on the task force together. They were formally charged with felony murder, aggravated assault, burglary, making false statements and violation of oath by a public officer, according to the news outlet. Now, those are 2 cops involved. You have a federal agent, a U.S. Marshal, and you have a police officer local. There's a 3rd officer involved who should be charged, but he's dead, he died. And the truth is, the one who has already expired is the one who was the most egregious. He shot the most times. It gets deeper. Let me put up a picture of the Marshal director. His name is Ronald L. Davis. Obviously, this guy was appointed by Joe Biden. This is a new administration. The reason why I want you to remember him is because he will be responsible for changing the policy of the U.S. Marshals. It is now at his door. There's a local policy for most police agencies in metropolitan Atlanta to wear a body camera. No body camera was involved in this. You know why? Because it's against federal policy to wear the body camera. So local police officers who would normally have on a body camera, if they are part of a federal task force, as in this case, the task force was led by the U.S. Marshals, they abide by the U.S. Marshals policy. No cameras, none. After all of these bullets flying to an apartment, killing an unarmed black male for a fugitive warrant, according to the narrative, somebody went inside while he was dead and put 2 more bullets inside of his body while standing on top of him. That's according to the forensics. This is egregious. This happened in 2016. It is finally getting indicted now, okay? Let me give you some more background to this. A medical examiner's report said Jamarian Robinson, who was 26 years of age, was shot 76 times by police on August 5th, 2016. When officers tried to enter his apartment, law enforcement believed Robinson was the man responsible for pointing a gun at Atlanta officers and fleeing, according to authorities. Now, this is why it's important for you to understand this. They thought he may have pointed a gun at a cop. So they went in, guns blazing. How dare you point a gun at another officer, right? That's the idea, that's the sentiment, that's the attitude they had. We'll show you about pointing a gun at a cop. Let's be very clear, he's innocent of that crime. You know why he's innocent of that crime? Because you're innocent until proven guilty in the United States of America. He was innocent. They killed an innocent man. It gets deeper. It was not immediately known if Hines or Hutchinson had lawyers who could comment on their behalf. Attorney Gerald Griggs, who is actually close to the family, could comment on their behalf. Attorney Gerald Griggs, who was close with the Robinson family, said the family celebrated the decision, which they've been waiting on for 5 years. A U.S. Marshal Service spokesman has said officers were attempting to serve warrants on Robinson issued by Atlanta police and Gwinnett County Police in the Atlanta suburbs. A private detective hired by Robinson's mother, uncovered evidence of gunshots fired straight into the ground where her son's body was lying. Robinson had been a college football player at Clark Atlanta University, my alumna, and Tuskegee University, and had no criminal convictions. How did this get to the place of indictment? How did it happen? The former DA, his name was Paul Howard. Paul Howard said the federal government refused to hand over important information that they needed to proceed with a grand jury indictment. He was telling the truth because he eventually sued the federal government because they refused to hand over that information. He lost his reelection bid to Fonnie Willis. Let's put up the new DA. Fonnie Willis is the new district attorney of Fulton County. When she was running, her campaign said, hey, we are going to do something about this swiftly. A former Fulton County DA, Paul Howard, said the investigation into the case was blocked by the officers, okay? Refusal to cooperate and the absence of a body camera. But when Howard lost his position to Fonnie Willis, the new prosecutor promised swift action, and that is exactly what happened here. Now, I already know some of you, when we post this on social media and other places, you will say, well, why was he pointing the gun at the police? You know, the reality is, he wasn't. There's no evidence, there's no trial, there's no due process, there's no jury to convict because there's no person living. And in the United States, you are innocent until proven guilty. To all of you who believe in the Constitution and you uphold the due process clause, understand that due process was taken away from this young man. It is simply an accusation of what they believed. They believed this is what he did. Attorney, 70 some bullets. Some reports will say 59. Some reports will say 72. The reason why there's a discrepancy is because there were so many bullets that some ricocheted inside of his body and inside of that apartment. That's why the numbers have variables to them. But what are your thoughts here?
Clearly excessive force. But what is so important in this case is the type of indictments coming down on these officers. It really shows the progress and the willingness DA has to indict officers. Because in George Floyd's case, Derek Chauvin, his highest charge that he had was a second-degree unintentional murder charge. Here they're charging felony murder. That is a first-degree charge that could result in a life sentence for these officers. I would say that's almost unprecedented to charge felony murder against an officer in this case, because it requires the DA to show that the officers were committing a felony when he died. So they're gonna be arguing the burglary, that they entered the building in order to commit a crime, and doing that when there is a death, it's automatically a felony murder. I haven't seen a charge like this against police officers. It's definitely creative. It's definitely gonna have more sentencing against the officers. And if it does result in a conviction, it can be an example of how these types of incidences are charged in the future.
Yeah, and really, I mean, it's almost unheard of for a federal officer, for a federal agent to be charged with a local murder in the execution of his or her duties. This is rare, but this is called you're not above the law. That's what this is called.